Welcome. You watch UAP Truth 33. I'm John. I'm your host. Happy to be here. Happy to be with you guys, man. I got a couple of days off. I can actually dig into this thing, and I have. I've drilled down into a subject that is just crazy, and it's mysterious. It's everything you want, right? It involves UFOs, non-human intelligences, underground bases, remote viewers. And yes, I was skeptic of remote viewers, but this guy, Pat Price, one of the most accomplished, probably the most accurate, accomplished remote viewer in history, in my opinion. Aside from like Joe McMoneagle, Pat Price, Ingo Swan, but I think Pat Price was that dude, man. And I'm gonna tell you, stick with me because this story is crazy. So please stay tuned. I'll be right back. Pat Price.
On the Office of Naval Intelligence?
All of it.
And so you're also saying that there's a remote viewing program that was deeper than Stargate? Because that wasn't Office of Naval Intelligence. That was
That's right.
DIA after CIA.
Yep. No, this was a program. And Pat Price, I'll give you some idea how deep this goes. Pat Price, they had the file. Ingo Swan had the file that Pat Price had gotten so good at remote viewing that they assigned him a task of, they gave him the exact longitude and latitude down to the minute and second location. And he was assigned an artist, so that he didn't have to do these hen scratches trying to show it. But he was saying, so what's there? So there's this major building here, and there's big fence up with razor wire on the top of it and everything. And his facilitator was Russell Targ. And so Russell was saying, okay, now can you get inside the fence? Can you see anything inside the fence? And he goes, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, I can see inside the fence. There's just this no man's land there. Can you get to the front door of this place? And he said, all right. He said, okay, can you go into the room? Yeah, I can go into the room. So what do you see? Well, there's a big desk there and some chairs and stuff. There's a big file cabinet over in the right corner over here. Go over to the file cabinet. So he goes over to the file cabinet. He said, second drawer, first file. Read it to him. And he did.
What was it?
Well, that's not the point. The point is that he did it.
Yeah.
And he can do it. And it turns out it's an American facility. It's a top CIA security facility.
Yeah, but that's insane then. So anybody with remote viewing skills can get the nuclear codes?
Not anybody, but Pat Price could.
With all that said, right? We're going to keep investigating this subject, and I'm going to keep trying to investigate certain areas, dig into all the little dark corners of this that I can. And one of these dark corners is the story of Pat Price. And this story really, I'm going to say it resonated with me because just the way the whole situation unfolded. Hal Putoff actually met this dude when he was buying a Christmas tree, right? And they had some words, and then the dude shows up at Hal Putoff's office, slaps his tablet on his desk, and said, "Look, I think we need to look at this." So they start working with Pat Price, right? So the whole way that they came into contact with this guy was kind of strange, But not only that, but the things that he was able to do for SRI and Hal Putoff and them. This is the remote viewing research that they were doing in the 70s, and this all occurred in like 1972, 73. And so they had this guy, Pat Price, remote view first he remote viewed a weapons, or I think it was a secret installation in West Virginia. And not only was he able to remote view the place, but he was actually able to read words off of the documents. Talk about the people who work there, their names and stuff. So this actually like created a big stir inside the United States government because they were shocked because this place was secret up until that point. So then they had him remote view a facility. This is the weapons facility in Russia, deep inside Russia. And he drew up a whole diagram of the facility. There was cranes there. He was able to remote view the subterranean areas, and they actually verified a lot of things that he said through satellite photos. So they knew this guy was the real deal because there's no way he would have had this information unless he had some type of source. So, the craziest part of his remote viewing was he started remote viewing these underground, it's far out, dude. You ready? Alien bases. And he said they look like us with blue skin, cat like eyes. And they actually work alongside humans in these bases. That they have the ability to control our minds and unalive us. And the document that I read, it's an 8200 document. I'm going to put it up on the screen right here. And they're very clear about the dangers of remote viewing and CE5 protocols, right? And they say when you get into this, if you don't do it with the proper respect, if you don't do it in the proper way, these things will follow you home. Um, in the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, with James Lukatsky and Colin Kelleher, they speak about like shadow beings showing up above their beds, orbs floating down the hallways of their house, a lot of anomalous phenomena happening to them that they were experiencing, their family was experiencing it, psychological things. And this is all fascinating to me, man. So they give you a warning in the beginning of these papers, and it's right here. And it's kind of chilling, man, that this is possible. It's like reality. What do they call that? Ontological shock, a little bit. And the more I read this stuff, it sucks me in, and I believe it. I do. A lot of people say that this skeptics say this is nothing but a psyop, to get us distracted from the real things that the government's doing behind closed doors. But I just don't think that's the case. You look at the old documents of the 50s where you see these generals and stuff communicating about the capabilities of these craft that these pilots are seeing. And, it's obvious that nobody had that technology in the 50s. The documents exist. The FOIA, they came out, they were FOIA'd. You could tell they're legit, and so there's definitely a there. And I think that there's a there here with Pat Price. So he ends up telling us, all right, I can't work for you no more. I'm gonna remote view some mines, I don't know, to make a bunch of money. He was gonna like do like geological stuff and remote view, like, where people could mine for minerals or coal or whatever. So, but it was all smoke screen anyway. What was really happening was the CIA was taking them and they were going to use them in a deeper black SAP, secret access program. So I guess this was going to be like an unacknowledged special access program, and they were going to use Pat Price for some more secretive operations. Well, he went to Las Vegas with some friends, and I guess he was at the Stardust Hotel down there, and they were having dinner. And he told his friends, "Look, I feel horrible." And he went back to his hotel room. They hadn't heard from him. Whenever they entered the room, he was in cardiac arrest, and he ended up passing away in 1975. One of the claims from one of the people in the party he was with said that somebody had bumped into him that night. And there's been speculation that there's certain poisons that will mimic a heart attack, and they think that that might have been what happened to him. But with that being said, let's look at these underground alien bases he remote viewed. Because the reason why I got onto this, I seen a Hal Putoff interview with Joe Rogan, and Hal Putoff spoke about a remote viewer that remote viewed a underground alien base in Australia. So I immediately said, "Man, I'm gonna find out who that is." Right? So I started digging. I started investigating, and I found it. It's Pat Price. And the place is called Mount Zeal. And not only did he remote view Mount Zeal, he remote viewed a place in Zimbabwe. I'm gonna try to get this right, man. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen, but it's Mount Nyangani in Zimbabwe, another mountain range, right? And that there's a base there. So then I started thinking, right? Zimbabwe, aerial school. So then I go up on Google Maps, can't even speak. I type it in. It's 163 miles from aerial school. So anyway, for those of you that didn't see that episode I did please go back and watch that. It's an awesome episode. But these children were at this school. It was a aerial prep school in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and they witnessed the UFO land. Some of the students actually approached the UFO, and I'm so fascinated by that, like the innocence of children. Like, they don't even like sense danger. They were just like curious. It's really awesome. And anyway, these beings communicated with the children telepathically and told the children, like, look, you got to change technology of your world, or you're going to have a horrible future. And John Mack got involved, BBC reporter got involved, CIA started threatening reporters. Footage ended up disappearing. The BBC journalist Leach, I believe his name was, ended up passing a couple years later mysteriously. Kind of, it rhymes with these other cases. But so I wanted to locate that. It was 163 miles from Zimbabwe, so that's not that far. So I kind of wonder if did these students see beings that were possibly based in this mountain in Zimbabwe? It makes you wonder, man. And then not only that, but the other mountain was Mount Hayes in Alaska, the Dark Pyramid. I did an episode about that, and supposedly these beings have blue skin, look like us, blonde hair. Um, I believe he said like kind of cat-like eyes, which reminds me of the Holloman Air Force Base landing when they said beings exited the craft, had an Egyptian headdress on, blue-like skin, cat-like eyes, and they interacted with the military officials on the base. So these stories connect in these ways. And I just feel like if it was all just a bunch of bullshit, that you wouldn't have these little connections, that these things wouldn't be, when you look at the evidence, when you look at the big picture and you zoom out, these cases begin to kind of connect to each other in different ways. Witness accounts, you know, evidence. And you look at somebody like Gary Nolan, like somebody he has all these patents. He was actually he was a Nobel laureate, or Nobel, um, he was up for the Nobel, I think numerous times. And he's telling us, these things are real. I had an experience, he says, and it just kind of, that's why I believe that this is a legit subject. Because I'll tell you, man, with all the information that's been going on and the stuff that's been coming out in the last week or two, um, I sat down and actually really had to re-examine how I was looking at this phenomenon, how I was reporting on this phenomenon, and whether I was just a tool for some secret government agency that wants to be able to conduct its deep black programs in secret without us knowing, by distracting us with this artificial UFO subject. That's what I seriously, and I think a lot of us go through that. And it's important that we do. It's good to have a healthy dose of skepticism. And this is why I say, like, we can't rely on government for disclosure. This has to come from us. Do your own research. Always do your own. Don't let anybody tell you what the truth is. Now, granted, truth is in the name of this channel, but that's because I just seek it out. And if things I'm looking at is telling me it's BS, I'm going to tell you it's BS. But this thing with Pat Price kind of looks legit. They think it might have been KGB that might have took him out. Man, it's actually things that I looked at, things that I've researched, and I'm not going to report on it because I don't know if it's true. I can't say it's true or not. Like, I didn't see any documentation for it, but they actually said the FBI was investigating Scientology because apparently he was involved with Scientology. But the three big suspects in his death is KGB, CIA, or Scientology, man. Yeah, it's crazy. So apparently, all these guys, Hal Putoff, Pat Price, the Scientologists, man, and it kind of makes you like, I don't know if you guys remember, like, Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, L. Ron Hubbard, they were good friends at one time. And they were doing these crazy rituals in the desert, like called it sex magic, weird shit. And apparently they were able to manifest this entity that Aleister Crowley called AWAS. And it looked like an alien gray, man. Just weird stuff. And then the fact that L. Ron Hubbard went on to found Scientology, which is like a huge religion, to certain select elites and people in intelligence, people involved with remote viewing, people in Hollywood. And you come to find out that once you reach a certain level in Scientology, that's when they tell you like that there's these spirits of these ancient aliens that are roaming the earth that are trying to bring down humanity. Just crazy stuff, man. And the fact that these people are involved in it just makes it even wilder. Yeah, we went there today. I mean, what do you guys think about this, man? I want you guys to check this clip out, and then we're going to come back and we're going to break it down. We're going to try to figure out what the hell's going on. I'll be right back.
Best.
So that's Pat Price, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the same file, it points out that Pat Price had actually evolved to the point where they could take a full photograph of a boomer-class Russian submarine, nuclear submarine, and show it to him and say, where is it? Right now. And he would give him right down to the exact longitude and latitude, down to the minute and second of exactly where that is. And he visualized the whole thing and told him exactly where it was. But there was a huge UFO right over the top of the water where that thing was. And it was tracking it and monitoring it. And he had it in the file. I'm going, whoa. I said, this is pretty wild.
There's other things in this 8200 document that I didn't mention that I should have. He's like remote viewing, like not only he was remote viewing like where UFOs were going to fly, how many of them there were going to be. He was remote viewing like different planets and different like beefs that different planets came from, and he kind of like labeled them purple, green, just really far out stuff. And I didn't really want to go into that, right? Because I felt like if I went that deep into it and really got far out with it, it would detract from the credibility of who Pat Price was and the work that he did for SRI and possibly the CIA. And I just don't know, like, is that true? Like, and I've been grappling between the whole nuts and bolts, spiritual interdimensional aspects, which is it? And but I have to report on it. So that's what I read. I'm reporting on it. You see it here on the TV screen or whatever you're watching this on. And so he definitely did those things. But does that make it true? I don't know. I think we're gonna find out. Like I said, I don't think we should rely on the government to tell us what's true and what's not true. But he reported on all this stuff. He remote viewed this stuff. A lot of the things that he remote viewed that they were able to verify, that they were able to actually check was right. Like the Russian base, the weapons facility. The places that he remote viewed in the United States. Crazy story. What do you guys think about this Pat Price dude, man? Crazy. Crazy. Do you think there's a black pyramid in Alaska underneath Mount Hayes? Is there a base in Mount Zeal, Australia? It's like obscure places, like, Zimbabwe. Like, I don't know. You would think like if he was fictionalizing something, he would have said like, a base in Russia, like, or something, or, underground UFO base in China, but he didn't, you know. Just makes you wonder about all this stuff, man. It's very interesting. I really got into the Gateway tapes and the Monroe Institute. I still, I'll listen to the Gateway tapes now and again, but what started happening to me was I started experiencing severe bouts of sleep paralysis, and they say that that's when you can detach from your body. That's when your consciousness can leave your body. That's when you can experience an out of body experience. when you go into these sleep paralysis states. Every time I kind of panic, man, I'm like scared. I feel like if I leave my body that I'm going to suffocate, and I haven't been able to do it. But I've tried numerous occasions. I've tried, the gateway tapes and out of body, trying to, experience that. I want to, man. If I ever do, I'll tell you. And I believe the guy from Area 52. He said that he's been able to do it. Michael, I think, is from Third Eye Drops. I believe that he's been able to do it. But I get to the sleep paralysis part where I'm right there and I chicken out, man. I don't know. That's the show for today, man. Pat Price, rest in peace, man. Awesome, awesome story. Very, very strange. I'll leave a link in the description for the Moreau Institute. They actually did remote viewing tapes to verify the things that he was reporting, and those are very interesting. So I'll leave a link in the description for the Moreau Institute and those remote viewing sessions and the 8200 document. You guys can check that out. Like I said, always do your own research, man. But please, thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment, share it to a friend, share it to two friends. See you tomorrow. Peace.